And good evening, everybody. I hope you watched that just a little bit. It's not just for girls, primarily perhaps for women, but these series of Go Confidently events just make me smile from the inside out. This is our second year for doing events like this, and as the lady just said, they're free, but it helps us share information about things that can make our lives better. And that's what it's all about. I'm Jackie Hayes. I work for Norton Healthcare. Been with Norton since I kind of retired 6 years ago, which is hard to believe. We get to do things like this to tell people the news that can make a life a little bit better. And I know that the speaker you're going to hear from tonight told me personally that he is going to leave you with things that you can take home to really make a difference in your life. It's not just a pep talk, but going to give us some information that can truly help us do things a little bit better. I am the manager of prevention and health marketing at Norton Healthcare these days, and on behalf of Norton Healthcare, the Norton Healthcare Foundation, and Norton Women's Health, I want to welcome you to our next to last Go Confidently event for the year. We do have another one coming up that I'll tell you about in a moment. We have a capacity crowd here tonight. I hope you didn't have any trouble finding it. This is a new location for us, but we thought it gives us plenty of room to hear our speaker who is with us, and so we're glad about that. On the table, you will find information like these cards that will tell you about other events that are coming up this year. I want to tell you about just two of them in particular. On October the 13th, we have a great event coming up. We are partnering with the Arthritis Foundation to talk about women and arthritis. I don't know if you were aware, but arthritis is 3 times more common in women than it is in men. My workout partner is down here with us, and she hears me complain week to week about how hard it is for me to now grasp things because I have arthritis in my hands. I went to this event last year. It was outstanding. If you have arthritis, if you have a family history of arthritis, make sure you take a look at that and join us. It's an interactive event. We have a dietitian who will be there to help you know about what foods you should eat that can help you deal with arthritis better, inflammatory diseases in general. Don't want to miss it. You just want to be there for that. Also on December 8th is our last Go Confidently event for the year. Again, one that you should not miss, especially for those of you who have children like Karen down here, Laura over there. You really want to hear from Christine Carter. She is a PhD. She is going to be talking about 10 simple steps for more joyful kids, meaning happier parents. That's going to be on December the 8th at the Olmsted. And remember, right before Christmas, it's going to make life a lot better for everybody, so make sure you join us for that as well. Now, on behalf of Norton Healthcare, I would like to recognize our media partner, WLKY. They have allowed us to share our message in a great way to let you know about events like this and to join us, and we're very, very grateful for their participation in this. Our WLKY speaker tonight is not a stranger to Louisville. She is a Louisville girl. She grew up here. She started working for WLKY in 2009. It's her favorite city in the whole wide world, and when she's not being a mom, she is being that face of the noon news at WLKY. Please welcome Karen Roby.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. This is such an exciting event. And WLKY, on behalf of WLKY, I'd like to say thank you, and thank you to Norton Healthcare for allowing us the opportunity to be part of such a wonderful event. I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker for the night. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Now a resident of Sarasota, Florida, John Baumann lived in Louisville for more than 20 years. At the age of 54, he's already led a full life and believes he's achieved more since being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease than before his diagnosis in 2002. After graduating summa cum laude from the University of Massachusetts and earning his law degree from Cornell Law School, Bauman worked as an attorney for 26 years, representing several large corporations and a private firm. He's well known for his work, of course, as an inspirational speaker, an author, and guest commentator for CNN Headline News Primetime. He also left his mark as a faculty member at the University of Louisville until 2013 and was selected Most Inspiring Professor in 2010. Bauman is an example of how embracing adversity can have a very positive impact on our lives. He shared his message at more than 70 symposiums in 5 countries, including the World Parkinson Congress in Montreal in 2013. His presentations and his workshops motivate participants through 12 action steps, including exercise, talk of exercise, healthy living, and a positive attitude. Bauman considers himself healthier now than before he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and he believes that you can be as well. He's an accomplished writer. His book, Decide Success, You Ain't Dead Yet, has been endorsed by a former governor, I love that name, corporate CEOs and executives from the healthcare and nonprofit sectors. He's also contributed to Ken Blanchard and Deepak Chopra's Roadmap to Success and other books. He's produced DVDs and CDs and hosted an internet talk show on success. And if that wasn't enough, Bauman is also the chair emeritus of the Make-A-Wish Foundation's board of directors, board member of the Parkinson Support Center, and an appointed ambassador of the Michael J. Fox Foundation. I had the pleasure of spending just a few minutes backstage with John and his wife Bernadette. To say the very least, I could see in just a few minutes why he's such an inspiration to so many people. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our very special speaker for tonight, John Baumann.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Norton Healthcare. You have a very special company, organization in this community, and they're putting on these events. It really sets them apart from every other organization. I'm fortunate enough to have presented and made presentations in Malaysia, as far as Puerto Rico, Alaska, San Diego, Phoenix, Vermont. It's good to be home. I love being in Louisville. My son goes to the University of Louisville in law school. My daughter is in Eastern Kentucky. Just started her freshman year. So it's good. It's really good to be home. What we're going to talk about today is change and perception. Change and perception. I had a life-changing event. I'm okay. I had a life-changing event. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2002 at 41 years old. I had symptoms many months before that, in fact, years before that, but didn't know that I had Parkinson's. I was finally diagnosed in 2002. Davis Finney is a Parkinson's spokesperson, and Davis Finney is an Olympic medalist cyclist. And he's not as famous as Michael J. Fox and Muhammad Ali for Parkinson's, but he did a keynote speech in Pittsburgh, and I was lucky enough to be the subject of his speech. And I want to play that for you right now. It's about 2 minutes long.
I'm talking about taking ownership ourselves and using something. Maybe we learned it today. Maybe we've been thinking about it. Maybe it's exercise. Maybe it's voice. I mean, there's a lot of ways with which we can improve our day-to-day life. And what I want you to do is to join with me and accept that as a challenge. I met a guy last week, John Baumann, who wrote a book called Decide Success, and he's a Parkinson's spokesperson. And he had come to one of our symposia, Victory Summits in Tulsa last spring. And it was funny because this guy walking towards me last weekend didn't look anything like John Baumann. He looked younger, fitter, and in all ways less symptomatic, and he just looked better. And he walks up, he says, "Hi, John Baumann." I'm like, whoa. And I said, "What happened?" He goes, "Well, I went to your Victory Summit, And I heard, and one thing stood out to me, and that was that I needed to challenge myself physically to improve my life. And I did. And he said I hired a personal trainer. I just got it. I day after day after day, I worked on my weaknesses, worked on my weak points, lost 25 pounds, and he goes, I got it. And I think that is what challenge.
How many of you out here have know someone with Parkinson's or have someone close to Parkinson's? Wow, that's a good number. Parkinson's is a life-changing event, but there are lots of other life-changing events. Well, these are the wrong slides, but I'm gonna go with it. That's Bernadette. We've been together 4 years. 4 years ago, I hit rock bottom. I was showing all the symptoms of Parkinson's, which are shaking hand, which comes back from time to time, tremors. My face had no expression. I was fatigued. I was sleeping a lot. I wasn't engaging with my family. I wasn't doing well. And then I made the decision, as we talked to Davis, and I made the decision to do everything I could possibly do to make this life-changing event as tolerable as possible. And I went to, in January of 2012, I went to St. John, the Virgin Islands, and I met Bernadette. And we fell in love. And you know when it's right, it's right. And that was in January 2012. We got married in February 2012. Didn't wait very long. Now, besides the fact that she's a wonderful person and very attractive, she's also an exercise and nutrition enthusiast, which wasn't a bad little side note. And she became the drill sergeant. She was lieutenant colonel, whatever you want to call her. But she did it in a subtle way, which is kind of interesting. She started doing Insanity by Sean T. Anyone ever see that infomercial, Insanity? It is insane. So she started doing this. She's jumping over imaginary logs, and she's doing the Heisman position back and forth. And I just watched her, and she never forced me to do anything. And finally I said, let me try that. And I didn't do it well at first, and I got better, and I got better. And then I said, well, if you had your druthers, what exercise routine would I be on? And she said, well, you start on the treadmill, start slow, and then she put me on the elliptical machine. And then we started doing spin bike. Then we started doing interval training on spin bike, looking at videos, where you stand up on the spin bike, and you still continue to spin the pedals. Then we did boxing fitness, kettlebell fitness, and today I still do hot yoga and kettlebell fitness. At the time I saw Davis Finney, I had lost 25 pounds. I unintentionally have lost 40 pounds. My cholesterol has gone from 180, bad cholesterol, down to 100, and I feel so much better. One of the things about Parkinson's that you wouldn't know is that the only drug that makes a difference to Parkinson's is levodopa-carbidopa. It's the gold standard. And it only is absorbed in about this section of your intestines, about this size section. And animal protein blocks the absorption of levodopa-carbidopa. So when I went to the doctor, she said, you have to not eat meat 2 hours before and 2 hours after. And we made the decision just to cut out meat altogether. And that was a tough decision to make. But I felt better. And whatever makes you feel better, you need to do for any life-changing event. Anyone remember the movie Overboard? Goldie Hawn, Kurt Russell. If you never saw it, Kurt Russell convinces Goldie Hawn that she's actually poor like he is. She's actually rich. She has amnesia. And she finds out that she's rich, and she goes back to the boat, and she's kind of between worlds. And Roddy McDowell, who's a very famous actor, was the butler on the ship. And I said to myself, why would Roddy McDowell take this role, this minor role? He can take any role he wants. And I think it's because of one line that he gets to give. And I'll tell you what that line is. Goldie Hawn says to him, what am I going to do? And he says, Madam, we are all born with blinders on. You've had yours removed for a short period of time. What you do with that information is entirely up to you. But when you have a life-changing event, your blinders are removed. How much money you make doesn't matter anymore. What type of car you drive doesn't matter anymore. How big your home is doesn't matter anymore. You've got a life-changing event to deal with. And it gives you a great perspective. And that's the perspective that I'd like to take every day of my life. Take a new perspective. Take off the blinders. What is Parkinson's disease? Let me just give you an abbreviated version of this. In your brain, there's a thing that creates dopamine. Dopamine is the pleasure center of the brain. When you start losing dopamine, it starts producing less and less dopamine. You start having symptoms. You start slowing down. Your body starts slowing down. The first thing you lose is your sense of smell, which I lost in my 20s, I think. And it never occurred to me I had Parkinson's. Then you start with the other symptoms, expressionless face, don't blink, that sort of thing. When you get down to 20% of the dopamine level that you should have, that's when you show all the symptoms. So that's why it's a slow progressing disease. And everyone is like a snowflake because we're all different. If you've met one person with Parkinson's, you've met one. That's what makes the disease interesting. Finding out. I went to the doctor, the neurologist, referred to by another doctor, and I handed the paperwork to this neurologist, and she said, "You have Parkinson's disease." I said, "Hold on, time out. You haven't hit my knee with a hammer, you haven't looked up my nose, you haven't taken blood. How can you say I have Parkinson's?" She said, "Because you have all the classic symptoms. Your handwriting's illegible." Now I'm a lawyer, so it's going to be illegible anyway. And you don't blink, your expressionless face. When I walked, my arm didn't swing. It's kind of weird. And I had tremors in my hand. So I said, "Well, I want a confirmatory test. I want a second test." She said, "Well, the only confirmatory test is an autopsy." Well, we decided not to do the autopsy at that time. I saw white light. I saw white light that day. I don't remember driving back to the office. It was such a shock to me. And I've seen white light twice before in my life. I haven't even been in 2 bus accidents. A bus tipped over when I was 14, and when I was going back to law school, we hit an ice patch and went into the trees in a Greyhound bus, and the bus driver was killed instantly. So in each of those instances, I saw white light. Well, when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I saw white light. It was that much of a shock. By the way, if you see me later on a bus, don't get on the bus. Eternal optimist. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. It's a great story from my childhood. We were building a fort when I was 10 years old in my backyard out of some old fencing. And we could only fit 2 people, so me and my best friend were in this fort, and my brother came by and asked to come in the fort, and I said, "Well, there's no room for you." And that wasn't very nice. Well, he went over and picked up a rock and hit me over the head. And there was blood everywhere. My mother freaked out. We went in. I had 10 stitches. My brother tells the story it was 2, but it was really 10. So it was time for my brother to go to bed. He went to bed. It was time for me to go to bed. They didn't put me in bed. Time for my oldest sister to go to bed. She went to bed. I got to stay up because they were checking for a concussion. And then they brought out ice cream. And the story goes, I said, "This is the luckiest day of my life." I got hit in the head with a rock, but it was the luckiest day of my life. That's eternal optimist. And I try to bring that to the life-changing events, keeping a sense of humor, keeping as much positive energy as possible. You've got to embrace challenges, embrace adversity. No life-changing event is 100% good or 100% bad. And I'll give you an example that I haven't used ever in any speech. Winning the lottery sounds like a 100% good life-changing event, right? If you've seen the statistics of how many people go bankrupt afterward, how many people commit suicide afterward, how many people lose all their money, how many people are robbed and get killed, it's unbelievable. And that's supposed to be a 100% great life-changing event. Well, everything is gray. There's no black and white. And if you can find the gray, or more appropriately, find the silver lining in the dark cloud, you're going to be much better off. My mother said to me a couple years after I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, she said, well, John, you know everything happens for a reason. And I said to her, hold on, time out, Mom. You've always said growing up, everything happens for the best. I've heard it 100 times. Why would you change that to everything happens for a reason? And she said, because you got Parkinson's and I can't imagine that's for the best. Wow. This wonderful woman changed her best phrase because of my Parkinson's. I made a decision that day to become an inspirational speaker, to prove to her that getting Parkinson's was for the best. And that's what I truly believe, as strange as that sounds. Like I said, I was in shock. I also had another emotion. Anyone want to guess what this is? Denial. Take you a second to get that. Denial. Depression. Depression is a huge issue with people with Parkinson's for two reasons. One is you've got Parkinson's. That's depressing. Second is dopamine is the pleasure center in the brain. You have less dopamine. It's a chemical issue. The first time I felt depression, I was driving my car and I went into the deepest, darkest hole. And I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck is this? And about 20 minutes later, I came out. I didn't care if I lived or died. And I came out of that hole and I said, that was awful. And about 2 weeks later, it happened again. And I said, well, I'm not embarrassed. I'm not shy about this. I'm going to go see the doctor. And they put me on antidepressant. And I've been fine since. So whatever it takes, you need to do to deal with depression. When Robin Williams took his own life, partly due to being diagnosed with Parkinson's, Connie Leonard came and interviewed me, and I said to her, it's a shame I didn't get a chance to talk to him, because I think I could have made a difference. I was in San Antonio 2 weeks ago, and you have to look for moments where you can make a difference in people's lives, I believe. I finished my speech, and this man and his sister came over to talk to me. And I said, well, which one of you has Parkinson's? He said, neither of us. My wife does. And she really wanted to be here, but she couldn't make it. She's in a wheelchair, and she didn't feel up to it. I said, what are you doing? What are you doing for the next couple hours? I got 3 hours for my flight. He said, nothing. I said, let's go. So I went and visited with her. And when he left the room, she said to me, I'm thinking about committing suicide. And I said to her, first of all, what I want to say is that's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I think those are telling words. It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I said to her, I know you're an English teacher. Whose picture is that on the wall? She said, those are my grandchildren. I said, have you taught them everything you need to teach them? She said, no. I said, then you have something to live for. Wow. Bring the mountain to Muhammad. And that made me feel great. I may not be able to make as much money as a lawyer, but I call them inspirational bucks. Every time I'm able to affect someone's life, it's another inspirational buck. And I feel great about that. Fear. Fear is something that we deal with Parkinson's. Fear of the unknown, fear of what's going to happen. Just keep moving forward. This is what I tell myself when I have bad days, when I'm stiff. I'm a little bit off right now, as you can tell. I can never time it perfectly right. Forgive me, but that's just the way it is. But just keep moving forward is what my wife and I say to each other in these situations. And any sort of life-changing event. And when I talk about a life-changing event, I'm talking about the death of a child, death of a loved one, loss of a job, divorce, whatever you consider to be an adverse life-changing event. Just keep moving forward. Just put one foot in front of the other. What brings this to mind is the Serenity Prayer. Because what you need to do is grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You can influence change in your life. You can make a decision. Change is going to happen. The only constant is change. Everyone together. The only constant is change. Whether you decide to influence that change or not is really up to you. Worst thing that ever happened to me. My son once asked me, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you? And I said, let me think about it. He said, oh, Dad, why do you always have to think about things? Why don't you just answer the question? I said, well, I'm a lawyer, and I like to give thoughtful answers. So I came back to him the next day, and I said, I'll tell you what the best thing that ever happened in my life was the first time I held you, first time I held your sister, and the first time I saw Bernadette ready to walk down the aisle and marry me. I said, you know what the worst thing is? Nothing. There is no worst thing. Your sister didn't die. My daughter was diagnosed with diaphragmatic hernia, which gave her a 40% chance of living. And I can remember envisioning her funeral, sitting in the parking lot at Kosare Children's, banging my head on the steering wheel, wailing like never before, imagining what her funeral would be like. And it didn't happen. Wow. It didn't happen. She just started Eastern Kentucky, as I mentioned. And hopefully, with this deck of slides, it'll show that. Iceberg. The reason I show an iceberg is when you think of Parkinson's, you think of Michael J. Fox and his leg swinging and his hand tremoring. That is just the tip of the iceberg. Like I said, you get an emotional roller coaster that you have to deal with, but there's other things that happen as well, and it happens with a lot of life-changing events. The loss of confidence. This is the Go Confidently series. I call it shaken confidence. I no longer can be a lawyer. I loved being a lawyer. I wanted to be a lawyer my whole life. I no longer could do that. One of the things that wasn't mentioned in my bio, because it's just a side note, is I was a semi-professional softball player. We actually won the Texas State Championship as a shortstop. I couldn't play softball anymore. I had no zip on my throws, Parkinson's. So the two things I love to do the most were taken away from me. Just keep moving forward. You got to find your other joys. So you lose self-image because you're not the same person you were, but you are. Inside, you're the same person, but you look differently because your hand's shaking or you're slowed down. And there's self-confidence that's lost. There's an identity void whenever you have a life-changing event. And that's when I go to shake someone's hand, I say, my name is John Baumann. I used to say I'm general counsel of this company. I don't say that anymore. So there's identity void. Let me just tell you a story about some women that I met in southern Indiana. There were 30 women with Parkinson's, and they didn't have the funds to have a room like this. We conducted a workshop in a hotel room. And I never imagined 30 women in a hotel room before with me. It was a little bit different than I thought. But I said to the first woman, tell me about yourself. And she said, well, I've had Parkinson's for 12 years, and these are my symptoms. And I asked the second one, tell me about yourself. She said, I have Parkinson's for 8 years. I asked the third one, I have Parkinson's. I said, time out. You are not Parkinson's. You have Parkinson's. Parkinson's does not have you. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. The first woman piped up and she said, well, I was an architect, and there's a building in the skyline of Indianapolis that I built, I designed. And the second one said, well, I grow organic tomatoes, and they're prize-winning tomatoes. And it was as if the sun shined through and the clouds lifted. It changed the whole atmosphere. Like I say, you are not Parkinson's. You have Parkinson's. Parkinson's does not have you. Same is true with cancer. Same is true with any life-changing event. This is how I filled my identity void. Now I'm an inspirational speaker with these initials. Everyone loves to have initials behind their names. JD, MD, PhD. Well, I'm WJS HTHP. I'm an inspirational speaker who just so happens to have Parkinson's. I minimize the Parkinson's part because it's not me. It's something I have, but it's not me. I love caregivers. Anyone in this audience consider them a caregiver? Raise your hand. Okay. If the person that you're a caregiver for is here, I want you to thank the caregiver in any way you want. Touch their hand, give them a kiss on the cheek, stop there. Don't go any further than that. But tell them how much you appreciate them. Because caregivers are rarely thanked, but definitely appreciated. And that's the initials that you get behind your name. What's happening to me right now is called dystonia. My left foot is starting to turn to the left. I don't know why it's happening. I took my medicine, but it happens from time to time. It's very painful, but I'll get through the talk. If I can get a chair, it would be greatly appreciated. First time I got dystonia was in Venice, Italy. We were on a bridge. My wife speaks fluent Italian. Her family's from Italy. We were in Venice, Italy, and my foot started to cramp up, just like this. And I said, I've got to sit on the side of the road. So I sat down, and she took my hat off and handed it to me and said, well, while you're down there, at least make some money. I can't make this stuff up. Got to maintain your sense of humor. Caregivers make a difference every day. Be proud to be a caregiver. One of the things I talk about with confidence is regain your shout. I don't quote many people, but Tim Story says regain your shout. Remember when you walked in the house when you were 10 or 12 years old and you said, I'm home! Like you're announcing to the world your presence. Maybe nobody's home, but it doesn't matter. You're saying it. I'm home. That's regaining your shout. I don't know where we lost that along the way, but somehow we get beaten down and we lose that. Well, regain your shout. Something that's important to do. Create a plan. Nothing gets done without a plan. Daily action items. Let me tell you about daily action items. When I decided, I used to watch Perry Mason a lot. And that's what made me want to be a lawyer. And by the way, if you're ever on Perry Mason, and you'll never be because it's never, maybe they'll do a remake. But if you're on Perry Mason and he calls you to the stand with 5 minutes to go in the show, don't go on the stand. Because you're going to confess to the crime. That's what happened every single episode. Well, I was in 10th grade. I had mediocre grades. I didn't do anything extracurricular, and I didn't have a job. And my father came to me, and he said, you know your mother's a community college teacher, and I teach high school, and your sister's going to college, and your brother's going to go to college. We really don't have any money to pay for your college. I want to be a lawyer. Okay. So what I call daily action items are not graduate from high school, graduate from college, graduate from law school, get a job. Those are too broad. Daily action items are the things I need to do every day. And I truly did this in 10th grade. I broke it down. I said, I need to show up for class every day. I need to study for tests and do better on tests. I need to get a job, and I got a job at International House of Pancakes every night. I worked 5 nights a week. And I needed to do extracurricular activities, so I became student council president and was in a class play. And I was in Bye Bye Birdie. If you want me to sing a little bit. You don't want me to sing? But those are daily action items. Come up with your own daily action items for whatever customized to you. Daily action items, things you're going to do on a daily basis. And I'll show you my daily action items in a couple minutes. But they're customized to you. You need to decide what yours are. Educate yourself. Form your team. Reclaim your positive perspective. It's a word I made up. Whenever the seeds of self-pity start to creep into my mind, what? I think of the people who have it tougher than me. I think of the people that have it worse off than me. And with Make-A-Wish Foundation, I was able to really experience that because I spent a lot of time with a lot of families whose children either had a life-threatening illness and either passed away or survived. And that really brought home to me that there are a lot of people a lot worse off than me. My daily action plan: take time and medication. I guess I blew it there. Healthy diet. We made the decision, as I think I mentioned, to give up meat. We also made the decision to not drink any diet soda or regular soda. Cold turkey. I used to love my root beer. I love my root beer. But I watched a lot of documentaries, and this is what you need to do. Watch documentaries. Don't spend your time with the housewives from hell. Watch documentaries. She loves the housewives. That's why that's an inside joke. Watch documentaries. Food matters. Vegetated, whatever. But get educated on the healthy diet. One of the things that they talk about with Parkinson's all the time now is exercise. Exercise, exercise, exercise. 10 years ago when I started doing inspirational speeches, nobody talked about exercise. They had to do clinical trials over a 10-year period to decide that exercise was good for you. Duh. Now, I met Tony Horton the other day. If you know who Tony Horton is, he's the godfather of videos. P90X. And he said to me, you got to exercise. He said to the audience, and I talked to him afterward, but he said to the audience, you got to exercise. Who exercises 3 to 4 times a week? Who exercises 4 to 5 times a week? Who exercises 6 to 7 times a week? He said, you got to exercise 6 to 7 times a week to make a difference. Even if it's a half an hour, you got to exercise 6 to 7 times a week. So I started exercising. And you got to exercise beyond your comfort zone. Beyond your comfort zone. That's the key word if you want to make a difference. And that's how I lost all the weight. And I don't have 6-pack abs, but I have 2-pack abs. And my wife the other day hit me in the stomach 5 times just to prove to some friends that I have a tough stomach. I told her, don't do that anymore. I don't like that. Stay engaged, mentally stimulated. It's so important when you have a life-changing event, when you're down in the dumps, when you're depressed, to stay mentally stimulated, whatever that takes, whatever turns you on. I just joined a euchre club. I don't know if people know what euchre is. It's a card game. I just joined a euchre club in Sarasota. Everyone there is from Michigan, Ohio. I don't know why that's a place for it to be, from the euchre. But it keeps me mentally stimulated, and it keeps me social. It keeps me involved. That's the way I looked before engaging in this transformation. I'm the one on the left. That's not Bernadette. I got to start eating from a different parking lot. Why don't you show the boxing video, if you don't mind? Could you be queued up to do that? I want to. Muhammad Ali. Hit the mitt, don't hit me in the face. Hit the mitt, don't hit me in the face. I'm not supposed to be able to do that 12 years into my Parkinson's, but I do. And you just keep moving forward. You just keep moving forward. Tap into your inner strength. I know that each and every one of you have the inner strength to do this. Just tap into it. Find it. It's in you. Tori McClure told a story at a seminar I was at. And she talked about when she met Muhammad Ali. It was a long table, and she was the last one there, and there was only one seat left, and it was across from Muhammad Ali. And she went to introduce herself to him, and he said, "I know who you are. You're the woman who almost crossed the Atlantic Ocean in a rowboat solo. Do you want to be known as the woman who almost did it?" Those 12 words changed her life. She was not going to try it again. She put together a trip and made it the next time. Find your inspiration wherever you can find it. Muhammad Ali was able to inspire her to row across the Atlantic Ocean solo. What an impressive individual. You don't know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. Those of you that don't have life-changing events, you have the luxury of not doing these things. Those of you that do have no choice. It's your job now. If you care about your loved ones, if you care about your caregivers, you need to do the things that I'm suggesting. Those of you who don't have life-changing events, do it anyway. It's good for you. Maybe you won't have a life-changing event. Do you have to eat? Do you have to have a heart attack to stop eating fatty meat? Do you have to have lung cancer to stop smoking? No, just do it. Just keep moving forward. Jim Valvano, one of my favorite speakers, did an unbelievable speech at the ESPYs. He says, if you every day you think, you laugh, and you brought to tears, whether tears of sadness or tears of joy, you've had a heck of a day. I strive for that every day. And hopefully we've got my maintained sense of humor. The strongest people are not those who show strength in front of us, but those who win battles we know nothing about. Believe in human kindness. I did not know that I dressed like a Smurf until I ran into one in New York City. I couldn't believe it when I met him. I already told you about the bridge. I used to play poker with a bunch of friends, and when I got Parkinson's, my face got blank. And no one could tell when I got that fourth queen. And they banned me from the game. They thought I was cheating because I wouldn't take my medication the day before. And you always got the silly glasses. Uncover your purpose. I use this phrase very specifically. You've got a purpose. Everyone's got a purpose. You just have to uncover it. Don't create it, just uncover it. It's already there. But find your purpose. Michael J. Fox, let me tell you why I think sometimes Parkinson's is for the best. Would he have raised hundreds of millions of dollars for Parkinson's research had he not gotten Parkinson's? Nope. Would I be standing in front of you or sitting in front of you right now if I didn't get Parkinson's? I used to work late almost every day. I would be in an office reading contracts and probably die at my desk. Now I get to spend some time with you and feel the energy and inspiration that I get from you and increase my inspiration bucks. I got to teach at U of L, I got to write a book, and I got to help others. That's a heck of a life. Thank you, Parkinson's. Boy, does that sound strange. Discover your joy. My former joys, as I mentioned, softball and trial work. Those are former joys. I got to move forward. I can't keep thinking about that. I tell you what, we were just talking backstage, one of the interesting things about Parkinson's is you have vivid dreams. Well, my wife, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll be sitting up in bed going, safe, what do you mean safe? He was clearly out. Or I'm doing a closing argument. And my wife, keep her up a lot. But moving forward, my joys today, my family, my friends, social interaction, inspiring others to help themselves. I love doing this. This is my joy. I would do this every day if I could. I would do this every hour if I could. I'm going to Albuquerque on Thursday. I was in Akron last Saturday. I was in Columbus on Sunday. I love this, and I would do it all the time if I could. There's Bernadette. That's Katie. That's my diaphragmatic hernia baby. And we all know Buddy Bat. Believe in yourself and your team. Believe in yourself and your team. One of the most arrogant people in the world is Ted Williams. But Ted Williams believed in himself. He's the last person to bat 400. Now, if you know baseball, 400 is an unbelievable batting average. Even though it sounds strange that it only gets 4 hits out of every 10 times, that means he fails 6 times. But you're an all-star making millions of dollars if you bat 300. That's 3 times out of 10. So the last day of the season, the coach comes to him and says, we got a doubleheader today, Ted. You're batting 399.9. It's going to be rounding up to 400. You can sit today and you'll bat 400. And he's the last person to bat 400, and that was in 1945. You know what Ted Williams said? I'm playing. He got 6 hits out of 8 at-bats, ended up at 406. That's believing in yourself. Call it arrogance, call it believing in yourself. That's believing in yourself. Miracle on Ice. I heard Mike Rosioni, who was the captain of that team. They lost to the Russians 10-0 in the preliminaries. In the semifinals, they were losing 3-2, and Mike Rosioni said, "We could win this. We could win this." And he got the confidence. He believed in his team, and they ended up winning. And then Jim Valvano, the most incredible NCAA run ever. We love March Madness here in Louisville. We love March Madness. Well, this NC State team was unbelievable if you ever watch a movie on it. And then my 2004 Boston Red Sox. 85 years of frustration. And the crazy part about it is, in the American League Series, they were down 3-0 to the Yankees, the dreaded Yankees. And they lost 19-8 in the 3rd game of the series at home. And no professional team has ever come back from down 3-0. And one of the players they interviewed, and every commentator said, there's no way they're going to come back. And he said, wait a second here. Don't let us win Game 4, Yankees, because we got Pedro Martinez going in Game 5 and Kurt Schilling in Game 6, and anything can happen in Game 7. And their motto was, why not us? And they won those games. And they ended up sweeping in the World Series and broke the curse. That's a team effort. Live in every moment. I'll tell you how I got admitted to Cornell Law School. I was going to go to Boston College. It was a Friday afternoon. I was starting on Monday morning. I get a call, and they said, this is whoever, I wasn't even listening, from Cornell Law School. I said, oh, yeah, right. He said, no, really, I said, Brad, cut it out. He said, we don't know who Brad is, but we'd like to offer you the last spot in the Cornell Law School class this year. I said, wow, where will I live? They said, well, it's a dorm, but it's full. You got to find your own place to live. When do I have to decide? They said, right now on this phone call. I said, I accept. I lived every moment of those 3 years. The ivy-covered buildings, the tradition, the brilliant professors, the exceptional classmates. Every single day I was in awe. And that's the way I like to live my life today. That's the example I give of living a life for every moment. That's me in St. John, where I met Bernadette jumping off a top layer of a bridge. Oops. You may have to reinvent yourself. I sure did. And I'm not going to read this, but these are the things that I had to do. These are things I talk about in my book to reinvent yourself. Maybe I will read them, because Bernadette said I have to read things. I'm not allowed to just say, read them yourself. Conduct a new assessment. Create your new end vision. Increase your intensity. Dig deep. Raise your level of awareness. Tap into your resources and contacts, and have faith. Have faith in yourself, have faith in others, and have faith in a higher power. My man, Muhammad Ali, I'm the greatest. I said that even before I knew I was. Muhammad Ali says, my training starts when I don't think I can take another step. And that's what I think about every time I'm doing Bikram hot yoga and I'm in 90 minutes of unbelievable heat, or I'm boxing for a half an hour and I can't lift my arm for one more hit. I think of what Muhammad Ali says. Training begins when you can't take one more step. How many fights did Ali have before he won his first heavyweight title at the age of 22? Anyone want to guess? 120. He had to work at it. He's a natural, he's the greatest, but that doesn't mean he didn't have to put in the work. You got to put in the work, and he had to put in the work. His record was 100 wins and 5 losses as an amateur, and he was 19-0 as a professional. This is a phrase that I like to think about whenever I'm doing anything. Too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around. Wow. You can influence your experience with an adverse life-changing event. Tangible takeaways. Keep perspective. Remove your blinders. Just keep moving forward. Regain your shout. Tap into your inner strength. Uncover your purpose. Discover your joy. Believe in yourself and live in every moment. Now we can have the conversation time. Do you have microphones?
We do have a couple microphones that we're going to have available to know if your symptoms are progressive or do they reach a certain point, and level off, and how does the medication help, or if you are on medication.
I am on medication, and it helps. I need my medication in order to do the exercise regime I'm on. I absolutely need my medication. But not eating meat, like I said, a small part of the intestines is where my levodopa, carbidopa gets absorbed. And not eating meat allows me to absorb it in a better fashion. Animal protein doesn't block it. But it's interesting. They say that Parkinson's is a progressive, deteriorative neurologic disease. Well, I've gotten better. Now, whether that's things I've done but I've gotten better, especially over the 4 years with Bernadette. I better get better. She might leave me.
Hello, my name is Micah. I'm a well-known person.
You are a well-known person, Michael.
I'm a well-known person in Louisville. People can find me anywhere around downtown Louisville or everywhere. I got a question there. It kind of inspired me in my life because of Parkinson. And it seems like it kind of in a relationship related to other neurological diseases. And it seems like I have so many battles in my life. I don't have Parkinson, but a lot of people think I have that type of system. Can you explain the relationship between Parkinson and other neurological diseases with the same system? Can you give me some comparison?
No. I think there are actually 3 of you, because I used to see you so often in town. No, I don't have a medical degree. I know what Parkinson's is about. I've learned as much as I can about Parkinson's, but I don't know about other neurologic diseases.
I'm Jane, and I'm a registered nurse. And I know Norton's has developed a number of ways to help Parkinson's patients, clients, I prefer to say. Here in Louisville, we have become a center in the United States for the plant-based diet, and especially in the pure plant-based diet that reverses a lot of the symptoms of chronic illness or helps delay the severity of them. We have different organizations in the community that are helping people to address chronic illnesses. In your travels, my question is, have you found any cities where they've developed what I would call caring circles, where a certain number of families or individuals with their loved caregiver can get together and meet on an ongoing basis to help give them individual support and encouragement?
I believe that Norton has a much more advanced program, but I have seen them in other places. One of the things I want to mention about plant-based is I had a colonoscopy for the first time last week. I know that sounds gross. But I was actually, the doctor told me I was best in show. And it's because I eat so much vegetables. And that's what he attributed to. He was a vegetarian as well. What's interesting about, like I said, with Parkinson's, they did 10 years of research to decide exercise was going to be good for you. Well, nobody talks about nutrition. Over the next 10 years, I predict that they'll talk about nutrition and talk about what's good for you and how plant-based diet is really good for you. I do eat seafood. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, but my feeling is at some point you got to decide what's left. Everything is good. Everything's bad for you. So that's when I went to the plant-based.
I was curious, Michael J. Fox had surgery to assist his Parkinson's, so I was just curious of your thoughts on that and related to you personally.
There's a thing called DBS, deep brain stimulation, where they drill holes into my skull. I am not looking forward to that. But I have seen it in action. When we were in New Orleans, I got picked up by one of the leaders in the support group to drive over to where the support group was having the meeting, and I was going to be a speaker. And he was all over the road. He had dyskinesia. His foot was hitting the gas pedal and then letting up on it. He was flying all over the place. If I had 2 seatbelts, I would put 2 seatbelts on. I wouldn't go back with him. I said, you find another driver, because I'm not going back with this guy. And Bernadette's in the back seat freaking out. Chuck is his name. He's a good friend of mine. About 3 months later, I'm at Parkinson's Action Network in Washington, D.C., going to speak to Mitch McConnell and the rest of the people in Washington. And this guy walks in to the meeting, and he's like an anchor man. He's dressed impeccably. His hair is straight. He looked great. It was Chuck. I said, what happened to you? I said, DBS. They put electrodes, probes into your head, and they are able to use like a pacemaker pack, and they adjust it, and it stops the tremors. Now, I'm not ready for that yet, but what's great about it for me, the optimistic side of me says, if that's going to give me 5 to 10 years more of quality of life, that gives me hope, because in the last 5 years, they've developed better and better mechanisms for delivery of these probes. So I'm thinking that when I get to the point where I need DBS, at least it'll give me 5 to 10 more years of quality of life. So I'm thankful that the doctors have come up with this.
John, very nice speech, by the way, very inspiring. So thank you for coming here. It's been a lot of help to me. Curious, my question would be is how has Parkinson's affected your interpersonal life with Bernadette, with without getting into any details, of course.
No, I'll get into details. How does it affect my interpersonal life? Well, I actually wrote a chapter in a book called Living Well, just called Living Well. And they chose it to be the first chapter, which is pretty cool. It's a downloadable book, and if you send me an email, if you look up my email address in my website, I'll send it to you. But one of the things it says is burn the ticks off. There are people in your life that are sucking you dry. Got to burn the ticks off. I didn't have many ticks, but there are a few. Those people I didn't have time for anymore. The people that were important to me, that are close to me, that give and take, that care about me, I got closer to and spent more time with. I made a conscious decision to do that. And I go through, it's called Out with the Bad, In with the Good. And out with the bad includes lots of things to get rid of in your life, and in with the good. And what's cool about this was, I was in Key West, Florida with Bernadette and one of her best friends, and this whole chapter came to me in total in my head, and I wrote it in one draft, and that's what was published. First draft. I consider that somewhat divine intervention. My mother says, talking about divine intervention, that she's always believed in divine intervention. And when I met Bernadette, she saw it in action. Pretty powerful. I think my interpersonal relationship with Bernadette's going to be a lot better tonight.
Hi, my name is Joanne Clark, and I now teach water aerobics at the Southern Indiana Y. I started going there after I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. I didn't move my arms, I couldn't walk straight, I frozen face, the whole thing, and the water exercise has done wonders for me. And I just wanted to recommend it for anyone here with Parkinson's. Get in the water. You will be amazed at what it will do. I am better now than I was 10 years ago, so I'm in the water. That's all I wanted to say. And thank you for your talk. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Whatever exercise you're comfortable with, that's the exercise you should do. Whatever's fun to you, don't make it hard. When I do 90 minutes of hot yoga, it's torture. But I tell you what, when I step out of that room and the breeze hits me, I feel great. And the window of feeling great lasts 2 to 3 hours. So I'll go through the 90 minutes of torture for 3 hours of feeling great. Anyone else? Okay.
Well, one thing I was going to ask, then I know some people here are caregivers, and for some of them that may sometimes get frustrated or emotional themselves. Any advice that you would have? Or obviously Bernadette is a huge support for you. So Bernadette, maybe you could come up here too and share a little bit from the support end.
This is her forte. This is where she shines.
I actually do have the wonderful opportunity to address caregivers in most of the Parkinson's symposiums that we attend around the country and around the world. And when we attend these symposiums, I get so much out of them just from the educational standpoint, but also from the supportive standpoint from other caregivers and what they're going through. What I just picked up just recently, we were in New Orleans, and I never really thought of it this way, but as a care partner, I like to call myself, we're partners in this together. So the relationship, the dichotomy of the relationship sometimes changes. John May is my husband, so he's the man of the house, and he does things around the house. But oftentimes he's unable to do that. So the roles start to change. So as the wife, you start to feel a lot of those emotional roller coaster symptoms that John spoke about earlier. The denial, the anger, the depression, the fear, some of those feelings of, wait, I didn't really sign up for this. And I think it's important for caregivers to understand that reaching out to the support groups and realizing that you're not in this alone and getting that understanding that you can find tips to get through those times in your life where you are feeling really depressed or that you are feeling alone, that you can really get the help that you need. And it might be clinical also, where you need to go to a doctor or a support group or psychologist or a psychiatrist in that moment, and it will help. So
Isn't that great?
it's great.
She's such a better speaker than I am.
No. But there also is another thing that I like to say, and I call it the 30-minute rule. For any caregiver, I also give them that 30-minute rule, and that's a 30-minute time frame within the day to do whatever it is that brings you your joy, whether it is calling your best friend from high school, whether it's hanging out with your grandchildren, whether it is gardening or painting, doing your favorite exercise video at home. You really do need to carve out that time for yourself so that you can be even better caregiver than you already are.
Or drinking bourbon on the rocks.
What?
Bourbon on the rocks.
Right.
Here in Kentucky.
Great.
Thanks.
Do we have more? Oh, great.
Yeah, I have found that the levodopa does do a good job. It's very effective. The one problem and issue that I would like for you to address is the issue that I have. I dread to take it because it's probably going to make me sick. And I was wondering if you have encountered any of those particular issues insofar as the medication goes.
Yes, I did at first, and then I took what's called Tygan. I'm not a doctor. I'm not prescribing it. Go see your doctor, but check out Tygan. It's a purple pill. It's trimethylbenzene, something like that. It coats the stomach, but doesn't affect the levodopa-carbidopa. It's amazing how important it is for you to do your own homework and to bring your doctor these things. Like, I didn't sleep well. Like I said, I had vivid dreams. And Bernadette was in danger because I would punch out and I actually fell out of bed once. I was telling them backstage, and I actually slammed my face on the bedside table. It's dangerous. We went to the doctor, and Bernadette had done some research on a drug that I could take that let me sleep through the night. And I took it, and it was the first good night's sleep I had in 10 years. So do your own homework and bring things to your doctor. Don't just do it, but bring things to your doctor. And that's something you can bring to your doctor.
Hi, I just have a question. If you've never really been diagnosed with Parkinson's, but you show extreme signs of it, at what point do you go to the doctor, but you've never really been diagnosed with it?
That's a great question. If you ask somebody with Parkinson's how long they've had Parkinson's, they'll give you two answers. They'll give you the time that they're diagnosed and the time that they actually started showing symptoms. And it could be 5 to 10 years in between. For me, it was probably 3 to 4 years. The earlier, the better. Levodopa-carbidopa, there used to be two schools of thought on this, whether you should start taking it later in your experience with Parkinson's so that it doesn't wear out, or take it earlier. And I think they pretty much determined that you take it earlier. So the earlier you get the treatments, the better, especially when you start, it forces you to exercise, because that's your new job. Your new job is to make yourself feel better. So it's better to go see a doctor as early as possible. And they call them movement disorder specialists. Norton Hospital has Angela Hardwick. She's a movement disorder specialist. I saw her for quite some time. And Dr. Asaragi is a neurologist. But if you think you have Parkinson's, look for a movement disorder specialist. They have 1.5 years more of experience. It's amazing the things that I know from after this time with Parkinson's.
I was just curious as far as your improvement. Like, does the dystonia limit you from driving, or are you able to drive?
Was I ever able to drive? I was never a good driver. No, fortunately, my dystonia is on my left foot. So my right foot is what I do work the pedals on. My daughter, unfortunately, was left with cerebral palsy, a mild case cerebral palsy, because of the transition into the life support system. And she has problems with her right foot, so she can't drive. But my problems are with my left foot, so it doesn't affect my driving. At least I'm no worse than a driver.
Which medicines have helped you the most, and what about side effects?
Levodopa-carbidopa, Aslac, Amantadine is for the tremors, Wellbutrin for the antidepressant, and Tygan for the coating of the stomach. And that's been my combination for 8 years, and I haven't had to increase the dosage. And I attribute that to, once again, exercise and eating right, eating healthy.
There's one right here.
I just want to say thank you. And I'm, for one, diagnosed about 2.5 years ago. Had it for years, probably. I'm better off today than I was when I diagnosed, definitely. Meds, exercise. But the main thing I wanted to say was probably wouldn't have been diagnosed like that if it wasn't for Norton's. So I want to thank Norton's for doing this and other things.
Is that it for questions? Okay. On behalf of Norton Healthcare and WLKY and everyone here, let's say thank you to Mr. Bauman. Give him a big round of applause. You're such an inspiration. And a thank you to Bernadette as well. Thank you for being part of this. We appreciate all of you guys being here with us tonight. I know I've certainly been inspired by your words, John. There are comment cards on your table. We'd love for you to fill those out and hand them on your way out, or you can leave them on the table. We'll pick them up. Thank you all again so much for being a part of this great evening.